we're young, we have ideas, we have passion.
Welcome to G5A's first Open Circle. While we're meeting each other in this capacity, we hope that we can continue meeting formally and informally and on all the various platforms that we have today. And we can continue these conversations, but also convert these conversations into actionable steps. Perhaps, in leading with the work that we're doing, we're able to create a significant impact, especially for the city that we're all today a part of. We're all from very different backgrounds, very different spaces, very different age groups, and it cannot be more interesting for us to be here today. And I was just wondering, and I wanted to know from each one of you, in spite of all the busy schedules that we have, what are those creative passions or things that really drive you, the things that you are really, that are close to your heart? What is it that you've managed to sustain and continue? I would love to hear each one of you share what is that one passion project that you've kept alive.
Priyanka can breathe now, so that's great. I'll just jump in because I actually want to start a passion project. I haven't been able to up until this point. I'm 28 and I feel like since I finished college, all I've done is just chase work, chase success, try to understand what it is to be a functional adult in this world. But I see all of you today and there's so much that each of you does. It's not just one thing, and it's not that you don't excel at various things that you do. So I would like to start a passion project. I don't know what it would be. It would obviously be somewhere around the space of young women and building a community. And I think somewhere I do try to do that with my podcast. If anything, that's like a small passion project where we just talk to each other about what it's like to be an adult. What does it mean to be in your 20s? What does it mean to navigate through this world? As we spoke earlier, like the world is burning, but how do you stay sane? So yeah, that's where I'm at. What about you ladies?
Well, I think this 28 made me speak next to you because I am in the Indian Administrative Service, and you are 28, I have done 28 years of service.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And it's been lovely to be in the service because I guess that's what I always wanted to be in life. And when you can be what you always wanted to do in life, then it's God's grace on you, because God has given you what you had aimed for, aspired for. Well, having traveled all these years, and with the advantage of and wisdom of age, I can now say that what I really aspire to do is live the moment. I don't want to dwell on the past, nor think of the future. When I was your age, I'm sure I was thinking of future all the time.
Yeah, we are overthinking all the time.
Yeah, but now I think what I'm happiest doing is just living the moment. And I'm so happy to be here and living this moment.
I could not agree more. I've been in the service now for 18 years, here and there. And every time you change the place where you live, what you're doing, you have to suspend that. It's something you really learn to in your life. You suspend the moment. You say, I'm here right now. And I can say what brought me here in G5A and made me love this place so much in Mumbai is all the potentiality that there is inside a black box, but also how truth to yourself you are. For the time I've been knowing you, the inspiring thing is I don't know exactly what I will be, and I definitely didn't know when I was 28, but I know some parameters. I want to respect, I want to be true to myself, I want to be happy for the moment. I'm leaving. I want to keep reading books.
Yes. I've started doing more of that recently.
And watching less of Netflix, maybe.
Well, on this, I'm not that advanced still. But yes, but keep reading books because there's everything inside for me. In terms of having other points of view. This is what I mean. It doesn't matter if it is, I mean, we are among artists, so of course this is not just one art or one medium, books are medium, but I just want to learn. Probably the reason why we do our job.
Yeah.
All of us. I mean, I look at Manjeet because I know she always wants to know more. And she does that, and you do that. And this is what brought to me here today. What I wanted to share is this quest to understand more, just to be more open, more equal,
Yes.
right? And, well, this is where...
Well, that's exactly what resonates with me today, you know, what you said. Thank you so much, because that's the same thing what brings me here also. Because if I share with you, you know, Dhrupad as a music form has been this huge mountain in my life since I was 15, 16. And before that also, you know, this culturally rich family and educators and connoisseurs. So at this point, since actually the COVID has hit, what realization that I have come upon is that, I mean, of course, the medium is going to be this music, but through that, I want to sort of dissolve these boundaries, these separated spaces that we are in, you know, that this is classical music, and the hierarchies, and the socio-political mess that we are in, and all that. So that's what I am looking ahead. It's spread thin right now in my mind, but an identity, you know, that I don't want to really identify myself as a classical Dhrupad female musician
Labels.
And exactly, and so that's what I'm looking for in my future ahead, the years ahead, and that's why I'm so happy to be here, to just dissolve those boundaries, be more inclusive, and connect more.
Thank you. You know, Priyanka, when you asked about passion, I had a less evolved response, I have to say. And I think for me, passion is sort of at a personal level, the ability to keep dancing. And I think it gets harder and harder when it's not your, you know, primary profession and it's physically as demanding. But I think it's a space that always has me coming back to a sense of self, right? And also negotiating that even though I can't do what I used to, this is still where I find my personal happy space. And I think at work, there's enough of what all of us do, including what you do, which is pure, I mean, gadha mazduri, right? I mean, it's just, it can get mechanical because you also get good at it. So I think it's also being able to find a project that gives you that booster of excitement of going and, you know, feeling like you're evolving something new. And so presently for me, that is actually studying how women lead.
Oh, lovely.
Right? And just different styles in which women choose to lead. And I'm doing a lot of work around that and research around that. But the reason that I mentioned that is I think it's also that maybe very personal sense of finding that passion that brings audiences to the arts, right? It's, but yeah. So.
And COVID actually was a good example of how women leaders functioned, and really, I think not only understood what issues had to be dealt with, but really dealt with it with a certain focus and precision. That was remarkable. I mean, you saw that, you know, a lot of the countries, in fact, that were led by women seemed to have responded well and they did really well. And and there's so many leaders here that I think, that's special, because I think often attention hasn't been given to it. So I hope we can have you share that with us next time.
So, Manisha, talking about COVID, I don't know whether everybody noticed is that, at least for me, the enduring visual of the workers going out to test have been women. I see them everywhere, and everywhere there are women going door to door and testing. Maybe I don't notice the men that much, but I've definitely noticed there are lots of women out there. And part of it is because they have more empathy, and they're kinder at telling people to get out of your house, or telling young children don't be afraid. I think that maybe that empathy, I don't know whether it's been recorded or recognized, but I hope that it is. And
I think it should get documented well.
yes, yes.
But what I also want to say about what you and Anuradha said was that in this 28 years of my journey, 28 years back, people would be a little more surprised at seeing a lady. When I joined, my first posting was assistant collector. So they just thought that I was, assistant to the collector.
Yes, of course.
And not really giving me my worth of being an assistant collector in my own right. But I'm also very happy to note that along these 28 years, attitudes have become more open, they are becoming more acceptable. But having said that, I think we still have a very long way to go. Because even now, even at this stage in my career, I still find people getting surprised if a woman is doing well. and if you understand Marathi enough, what they say is, ती बाई आहे तरीही ती चांगलं काम करते. So this tarihi, which means in spite of, is what irritates me most. And I'm sure all of you would agree with that.
Actually, it's very interesting that
dictionary.
It's very interesting that all of you are mentioning, because Pelva had a quote that I read, and it reminds me of what we're discussing right now. In order to understand art and creation in its essence, it is very necessary to approach various bodies of humanity through the window of art, sound, space, words, and visuals, and ultimately understand art as a whole, as a living, breathing procedure. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter whether you're working with art or not, but the idea that we're looking at something in its totality, not just in its structure, not just in the procedural part of it, but bringing in what are the nuances. What is it that's adding that energy and impetus, and what is the fuel that we are adding to the projects? I feel if we could talk a little bit about in your own fields, yes, we joke that this is a group of women who are very effective, but beyond the joke, there is effectiveness, and what is it that's making it effective? Because when we're trying to create something like an art and culture system, which is less understood, which is less tangible in its sense, or valued, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we can do and add to give it this as a living, breathing procedure?
I will give you my point of view, and my point of view in this case is the point of view of the representative of a foreign government. Since I'm Italian and I'm here as a Consul General to represent Italy, we do promote Italian culture.
Yeah.
And this is my duty. This is part of my duty, and I'm grateful to Anuradha to have been partnering with me in these years. But it is not, we never, and this is something I strongly believe, we never present the Italian culture and that's it. Please come, see it, enjoy it, and that's all. We always do try to work together, not because it's a pose, it's something nice that we have to do, but because we have to learn from each other. And this is where, and this is very special between Italy and India, where we really build on together in culture, and it's a long-lasting, is that we have the sense of beauty that we share.
Yes. Yep.
Now, Manjeet gave me, 3 weeks ago, a beautiful book of photos about Mumbai. And it took me some time to just go through it, etc. And I thought, it is amazing. And I know that she felt the same because she gave it to me. So we do have a language. Now, when you have a base and you can build on that, and at the end of the day, this applies to all arts. I do think that when you dance and you sing, you understand, and we all understand the beauty of that. Well, this is already a language. I think this is where we have to build on to be. Now and then I will leave the floor. But there's a lot talking about now after the lockdown and during the COVID time about resilience, right? We are resilient. So that means technically we bounce back. Well, actually, what I hope is that we don't bounce back. We don't get where we were before. We just move to another position. Let's use it as a means. Well, it happened. Let's try to find out which other position we want to assume. And this is why I think open circles like that, this is my first one, but this is why I think it is important.
And the conversations around terms like resilient are actually not even this. The global conversations are resilient supply chains, resilient democracy. I mean, what does it even mean? But this is what it is. And during COVID, I was sitting on a recovery council for a group of innovators, and the famous author Margaret Atwood was on it. A bunch of businessmen, and all they were talking about how much their companies were spending on mental health because their employees had all really taken a beating. And she said to them, there's really one very easy way to do it. You don't have to pay the insurance companies, you just have to not stop your investment in the arts. Because who understands the human mind better than the artist? The poet will understand, the musician understands. And unfortunately, all countries, except maybe for Italy, have stopped their funding for the arts. During COVID, it is an outrage. And somehow or the other, this has just got to be able to be brought back into a different space so that we're not going back, but in fact, using this to understand the role of art in human beings and in societies.
Which is paramount. I think without art, we would be so poor.
And not understanding, we'd all become automatons.
Yes,
Exactly.
and I also think that it helps us be a better person. I mean, a novel, take a book or a poem or an art form can move us like none other, nothing else. And I always feel that whenever like you said, I am more of a consumer of art, not a producer. But whenever I see an art form or a work which appeals to me, I think there is something which is finer in me which comes out. And I always want that thing to come out, for which I think art is very much essential. And actually, speaking of COVID, what I think, I entirely agree with what you said, is that we need to learn the lessons that the pandemic has taught us and not go back to where we were and make the same mistakes again. So we need to move ahead into a better future.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned about the finer things and how you experience it at a very personal level. Does your work allow you to infuse art into the everyday?
I think if I would not have had all of us, we would probably have gone mad by now. But it also helps us be a better officer. I think somebody mentioned empathy. It was you, Manjeet. It helps us being more. It helps us bring out that empathy which we need in our jobs, to be good at it, good at what you are expected to do.
You know, what I want to say is that the appreciation for what it does comes from the fact that all of us have had a habit of it from a certain point in your lives, right? And a certain exposure. So the ability to accommodate that there may be another point of view, or that engaging with this is extending me, comes from, that is the ethos of the arts. But it also is that frequency and that habit which was clearly seeded in all of us in some ways. And I know that's where you'll take the conversation, but really sometimes I feel our responsibility is, not that sense of nostalgia, but how do you continue to amplify that in the world that we will inhabit post-COVID, post-technology? That's a difficult thing to do if, and being able to replicate those same spaces that we were allowed to do it in is, I think, the real question.
And as Rytasha and Pelva both being more entrenched in the arts as performers, do you have any responses to?
I mean, everything you guys have said makes so much sense. This is why we do what we do. And the 3 years that I spent studying acting changed me as a person entirely. And I was like, it's better than going for therapy. Just go to do a drama workshop for some. Of course, therapy is important. But now, as I stand at this point in my life, where I've somewhere kind of cemented myself as a reasonably decent actor, and people are willing to put money on me, I want to do something else, and the responsibility kind of lies on us as artists, as educated, privileged young women. So where do we take the conversation as a generation? And I think the main struggle for us is to find a balance between culture, craft, and commerce. And that's like the most irritating part, because we're young, we have ideas, we have passion, we have an open mind and an open heart, which I know a lot of my generation does, and a lot of your generation has had to work hard to evolve to that point. Not all of us, guys, I'm just speaking in general. But I think that's where the responsibility and the challenge lies for us, because you can't do anything mindlessly now, because luckily there is the woke police, there is the very left, liberal online audience which will call out anything which is wrong, and it forces you to really think 5 times before putting out a piece of work. But at the same time, there's a whole section which is so much bigger of this country that we've just kind of left behind. And to break those barriers of class, caste, all of those things, and to actually just maybe move together as a community with the arts and culture. And that's like my biggest thing, because I hate that art is this highbrow thing, and I don't
It is
feel it's
not.
for like people who are educated or well-traveled or drink wine and eat
Absolutely.
cheese. Like yuck. It should be for
Absolutely.
everyone, and that's what I hope my generation manages to like do. Yeah, that's my response.
But I think that I'm going to, just before you go in, I think that for every, especially in countries like India, where the artisan is the base of life, right? And even people that we will meet, people around us who come from the villages, they have multiple skills, right? They can do their city work,
Yeah.
they can do kheti, and they are all artists.
Yeah.
Because in the villages, so I think a lot of India is just based on art. It's just that it isn't coming.
Celebrated also.
It isn't coming up, and it isn't being
It's
allowed to. That is what is sustaining our communities, even through places like COVID, because they're able to do it for themselves, but our city folks just don't.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an emotive process, you know, even being a performer, or even if you, like you said, you're a consumer, or someone, you know, just sitting on the internet and listening to music or dance. It's an emotive process, it's an emotive exchange, and that's why in today's time it becomes so relevant, because if you look at COVID times, it was separating everything. We were all separate, we were all distant from each other. And art has that ability to just dissolve that distance, dissolve you know, I can just get in touch with you emotively, whether I know you, know your name or not. So that's why it becomes so relevant. But at the same time, I was just thinking in the morning that the 3 terms, industry, entertainment, and art, and how they connect is something that we need to redefine, ask questions, and have conversations also. Because, you know, what you mean by music industry? What do we mean by I'm entertaining someone, or someone is getting entertained? So these terms sometimes disturb me, and at the same time, you know, we need to question them and find different definitions of them at the same time.
Actually, I think that's an important thing to think about a little, and maybe we could spend some time on that, because I think you know, when we started G5A, there was surprisingly a lot of resistance to the idea of even a black box, because we, you know,
But
And
why
it-
would it be?
You see, I think it was unfamiliar.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't blame people, but I think, you know, when a lot of artists put themselves out there, there's so much insecurity and vulnerability that I think when people first came here, first of all the aspects that were not there, which were not there from the sort of classical notions of theatre, were sort of pointed out and all of that. And I just felt that at that point that, yes, fine, now let's work with this. Let's start with the black box and see. And for me, the black box, as an architect, yes, it was one brief that, that I needed to design it in a certain way. But for me, metaphorically, it really was important, that it really is like a blank slate. And it allows you to rethink, as Stefania, you were saying earlier, that, you come and you're sitting in the black box and, also already you're beginning to feel differently. And maybe you're, because the boundaries are dissolved in some sense, that you were talking about earlier. And so I felt that, when we were programming, it was very tempting to take on at that point anyone really who is willing to take the space, and I had to fight very hard to say no. I have to be firm in the sort of framework that we've set ourselves up for, which is really to be a space for experimentation, for new work. And initially, like I said, it wasn't easy, and we had very few audiences. And so this whole aspect of entertainment, a lot of people told me, and they were caring people, but not understanding what I was working with. And a lot of them would say that, look, you're getting someone who wants to do a music program which is, say, mainstream film connected. And
commercially viable.
Yes, commercially viable. And I have to say it was tempting only from the point of view of just building a kind of sustainability model, because when I started this, there was no model. But I had to, keep telling myself and others that, look, if we start with this, it's never going to then give space to what we really want to do. So we really started at that point just saying, no, this is not for mainstream, simply because the mainstream doesn't need us. Yes. They have the support that they need. So it's really about seeking out voices that haven't been heard so far, voices that have been for some reason or other remained invisible. All of this was what G5A's purpose was, and it was a really hard struggle to really get people to say that, is it that I need to be entertained all the time? Yes, entertainment is wonderful. I love my Netflix and, all of that. But I think for us to make sometimes an effort to understand someone's voice that may be in a language that's unfamiliar is where we really need to push, I think, the envelope. And I'm sure, especially with Dhrupad, it's a tough,
it's had a feudal history
journey.
Yeah.
Yes. And though I don't want to call myself a female Dhrupad musician, but yet it has had a history where women were not part of it, and women were practicing in their homes. So that's why this whole question of what is entertainment and what is this whole feudal culture that we still nurture, even though, in liberal classes or even in the other realms of society. And that needs to, I think, question, not dissolved or, completely break free of it, because that's going to take time. But I always question that with myself, with my audience, with my students, that how we have journeyed, and today, in what way can we dissolve this boundary between there is this audience and there is this person who is an artist and a musician, and of course there is an exchange happening, but then what kind of exchange is happening? Is it emotive? Are we meeting somewhere in between? Are we looking at ourselves and our vanity and our ego, or there's the third entity there, which is a rag or a form or a sound, and are we looking at that together? And when that happens, I think it all dissolves. We don't really need to shout out about, down with feudalism or down with mediocrity, things like that. So,
may I ask a question as artists, both of you, and even you as Space, that is it even necessary to have such bounded labels of performer or commercial or entertainment? Or, how do you feel about exercising sort of a little beyond your boundaries, and then, because it's even in that exploration that you know where you want to stand at a given point in time, right? That could also change. I just wonder.
For me, I feel like just society feels more comfortable when they put you in a box.
Yeah.
So it's not for me, but it's for everyone else. I'll make it easier for you. It's too much to explain what I'm capable of, the things I think, the things I feel. You won't get it. I'm an actor. Here, take it
Absolutely. Yeah.
and go.
Yeah.
And I hate labels personally for anyone and everyone. Just to move out of the artistic and just to like look at a woman with ambitions, thoughts, feelings, dreams, hopes, wishes, all of those things. I look at my mom, and now she's in her 50s. And for the last 2 years, all I've done is tell her to live her own life. Because the thoughts I've been having are like, if my mom had been the head of the family or in charge of the family or in charge of everything and also earning the money and making everything happen, what would life be like right now? In the same way, go back and push way back, zoom out, beginning of time, beginning of civilization. If women had been as involved in positions of power to make decisions, the whole world would be different. The whole culture, art, craft, humanity scene would be different. So that's I've fully digressed, I know. But I was coming back to the main point, which was,
Labels.
yeah, they don't make me happy because they are limiting. But
It's easier
yeah,
for
the
people.
world can't handle limitless people.
But this is one of the things. It's how everything needs to be simplified to be understood. Well, art
Exactly.
is about complexity. It's about understanding a complex message in a way that it's, as you were saying, is an emotional connection, right?
And maybe everything can't even be articulated by the human
yes.
No,
tongue,
exactly.
which is
but
why
it doesn't. Because colors are colors, because dance movements are dance movements, because the way you move your hand or you use your voice and we perceive it. I think this is part of the struggle, generally speaking, is that we should be more, and it has to be also with the words that we use, and I say it because I'm not English native speaker, of course, so it's a bit of struggle, but we should articulate the words and the thoughts in a way that the complexity. And the reason why I'm saying that, they say I don't have to move too much, but the reason why I'm saying that is because women, most of the time, are complex.
Right.
So we bring our own complexity into, without labels, just articulation, onto the floor. And going back to, and what you were saying resonates so much into me, Anuradha, no surprise. When you said about the black box, it came to my mind, first of all, yes, of course, a woman said, I will not do this, I will not do that, because I stay true to what I want and what I think it's right, and I love that. And the other one is, we have to sustain artists. We have to make sure, in two senses, to make sure that there is enough to support you. You cannot, starve or beg it, or try to be commercial or viable just to make some money to support yourself. And on the other hand, and this is what you're doing both here in G5A, you have to nurture the creativity that with lockdown, unfortunately, partially is gone. So we need more spaces like this one, because you have to nurture ideas flowing. Because for me, it's just a pleasure, but for you, the artists, it's vital, it's necessary, and it becomes necessary, a necessity to me too. And the other, let's say the other part is we sustain, we support the artists, and then we make sure that everyone who's interested, no matter the background, can just get into these complex messages that doesn't need to be simplified. It's difficult, sorry.
No, I think
Makes so much
you've
sense, yeah.
you've actually hit the nail on the head, because I think when we talk about entertainment, it is about simplification, and like we were saying outside, appealing to the common, the lowest common denominator. And I think that if we, I just appeal to people to just create a larger bandwidth. I'm not saying you remove the mainstream or any such thing. I'm just saying just broaden that spectrum so that you make space for this. Because finally, it is really the margins that and independent work and voices that create new ideas, new thoughts for the mainstream. You know, so it's so vital that that sort of relationship. And if we just start simplification, it's very different from simplicity. You know, and that's what we sometimes think. You know, I don't know. So I think that should be the core.
You just described, you just gave the description. It never occurred to me before. But you just described exactly what R&D is in a company, a private company. Research and development. You never know where this research and development will go.
Yeah.
You put
That's right.
energy and money into that, and then you go to Mars one day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some other of
Exactly.
that experiments will be nice experiments, not really going anywhere. And your words for art and broadening the van was just that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's amazing.
Yeah, but it's truly, and if we all, I think what we all need to figure is just ways of you know, remaining connected and to bring this kind of energy so that, you know, we're all able to make some kind of impact that has that kind of critical mass, you know, that we were talking about earlier. That I think there's so much to be done, which is exciting always, but we can't do it alone. We can't do it separately. And so I love the fact that you're only 28.
But you know, another thing that happens in the entertainment industry is just that artists, like, I don't know about how it is for you, but I think actors end up feeling quite like alone in the sense that, oh, you are a solo person, like you are one part of this entire big puzzle. This sense of community and everyone learning, unlearning, growing together, it doesn't exist. And that's hugely problematic also because community is the foundation. Like,
Yeah.
It's the
What I
same.
like about your story is the story of persistence. Because one of the few things I strongly believe is that if you really want to do something, and if what you are doing is a little different than what is already being done, then there are going to be people who will not exactly discourage you, maybe, but not exactly encourage you.
Exactly.
So persistence. So I think persistence is the first thing, which is just the thing to do. Second thing is what you were talking about communities. In my job, I find if people, like-minded people, come together with a common objective, teamwork is brilliant.
right.
And teamwork
Absolutely.
creates so much synergy. And whenever I work with teams, I find this synergy, which is much more than the sum total of individual energy. So I hope this project is actually about being synergetic and being
Yes.
persistent.
Yes, this
Yes.
open circle, in
Yes.
fact,
Yes.
is something that, you know, we could define, you know, like I was telling all of you, that this is really a first that we hope blossoms into something quite wonderful.
yeah.
And I would love to be a part of
Wonderful.
every successive circle that
Lovely.
if I can make the time.
Ritasha is definitely there.
You know,
She has to.
I've
Exactly.
been performing at G5A for a couple of years now.
The black box.
Yeah, in this very space. And
Yeah.
honestly, when I moved back from drama school, there was no other black box.
Yes.
This was the first, and it had just opened while, like, right before after I moved back. Yeah, anyway. So this space is A, magical, B, also I always approached it because I was scared and I was, oh, no, it's too artistic, it's too intellectual, it's too all of that. I have come in with my own baggage as a young person, as someone who desperately wants to be part of the art and culture community but is scared to even admit it to myself because it does seem intimidating at some level. But now that I've been coming here a little more and I'm also growing up and I'm learning more things, I get it. And I'm like, there's no other space in this city which fosters this kind of feeling inside of me. I'm grateful that you've persisted actually. And like, because it takes guts. It takes no guts, no glory, like my dad says. But like, it takes guts to come back here and just like keep pushing because
Every day.
our country is not ready. Bombay as a city is also not ready. Within that, there's a smaller smaller group of people who are kind of ready but not fully ready. And to like get these people together and be like, come on guys, we can do it. We can. And teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
And
for sure.
yeah, like the idea of collaboration, and also what we've, I think what's been the underlying thread of the entire thing, that we're working with emotions, we're working with empathy, we're working with how do we create a space where we sustain both the work and the feeling, right? And that is what we want to sort of take forward as threads. We want to take forward, and again, I'm going to again push you a little bit more to just think of thoughts and ideas that might have cropped up, because all of us have faced resistances in our work. All of us have been a part of the systems or various systems in different ways. We've experienced resistance in different ways, so there's no point harping up on the problems, because we're aware there are problems. But where do you see the ray of hope? Yes, here.
Yeah, of course you are.
Women supporting women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is lot to be tapped there, which and a lot more can happen to women from diverse fields if women come together to support women. And I think that sometimes in offices is said that no two women can work together and stuff like that.
They
Who those people
they
are.
don't want us to get ahead, so they make shit up like that. Like two actresses can never be friends is bullshit. They don't want us to gain strength in numbers.
But when women come together again in teams and partnerships that I was mentioning about, amazing
Aag
things
laga
happen.
denge.
Amazing
I'm with
things
you.
happen.
Yeah.
But Manisha, that doesn't always happen. I've had many women friends, even in fields as advanced as finance. You know, people creating funds run by women for women-led companies and startups, and they couldn't find a single woman to support them. Even all the big women that we read about and hear about, they do not support. Once they're in the men's room, they do not want to
This has
support other
change.
women.
It's not a boy. Yeah.
It is, and the only way to change it is to institutionalize women-led organizations, take the lessons, because sometimes we also don't understand what it is that we are doing in order to get to the next step. Then you've gotten to the next step, and then really you've just got to be able to get to the next one. But you're not documenting, recording, and we need to institutionalize it, because men-led institutions have been institutionalized. And women-led institutions need to also be institutionalized, and culture needs to be
See, we need your voice.
Yes. Yes.
Articulated it so
Yes,
well.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, to your point on, how do you do this? My experience has been that it's wonderful to have spaces like this, right? But you've got to think about it as many levels. So
Yes.
I don't want this to be a loaded word, but if this is the temple, what are you doing out in that space, and how are you claiming space there, right? So you got to make friends for the arts. And that doesn't always have to be entertained. You don't have to cross that line. For instance, I straddle these two worlds of business and the arts. And when I go into the business world and I do my work, I'm sort of, you're talking about agility, you're talking about excellence, you're talking about teamwork. Have you ever seen synergy in a jugalbandi, right? The arts actually do this. So you take their language and you say, you know what, you're figuring this out. Artists know this intuitively.
Yes.
And that's where you begin to earn value for, and they say, oh, there's more than entertainment here, because sometimes they don't have that habit of engaging with it deeply.
Yeah.
So when you say arts, they think of it as, lowest common denominator as we talk to.
But Swati, the point that Manjeet was making about women leaders not really always supporting women. You said you are also working or doing some research on women.
So I have a more nuanced perspective, right? I think sometimes it has to do with the role models you saw, and very often for a certain generation of women, they were all masculine. So even when women manifest as leaders, that's what they understand as leadership, right? Two, you're in the club and you feel you've worked so hard to get there, you don't want that question. Which is, by the way, the same inclination that a man would have. I'm not sure that it's a feminine one, but there are lots of institutions, whether it's in the social sector or now, certainly I see a lot of startups where women are willing to say, this is how I lead. And sometimes decision making is messier because I like consensus, but there is a process and I'm committed to that. And I think I think there's actually a broad spectrum.
Actually, what I want to say is you made one point of a woman being in a man's room, a boardroom, and you are probably oftentimes the only one. 10 years back, or maybe 10 to 12 years back, I would tend to be a little more conformist.
Yeah.
Because I would not want to be, to be seen as she's saying something because she's a woman. But now with my kind of seniority, I take the liberty of saying, well, this is what I want. Not want, but this is what I think.
Right.
If you're okay with this, take it, leave it. Oftentimes, people have come back to me saying that this view of mine, the so-called woman's view, was actually the better one.
Now, I think you mentioned club, and I like what you said very much, and I share that with Manisha. Men don't need a club; they are the club.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
are the club. Agree completely.
And we know because we all do male's job, right? Which was probably 20 years back were usually male's job.
Yes.
So they are already, they don't even need that. They networking naturally. What I learned, and I learned in the hard way, is I will never be in the club, and I don't want to be in that club.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it's not my club.
That's right.
But probably with trust into each other and where we stand for, I don't like club maybe, but just recognize ourselves. I know how great professionals you are because I've been working with you. So I don't need you to be in the club, or I don't need you to focus on building something together forcefully. I just feel close on another level. But the men's club, and in a way it's cultural. I always say that because I think it's a lot of fun. When I think I was just being posted here, and I got a nice email addressed to me by an Italian gentleman who wanted to open up. Was shop selling furniture in Mumbai, and said we would be delighted to have the Consul General of Italy opening up the ceremony, etc., and gracing the occasion. And I immediately, very nicely, replied, I will be very happy to be there. Thanks a lot for the invitation, for sure. Count me there. He replied back, there were at least 10 people copied. Thank you so much for this. But if only the Consul General could make it.
Oh my God.
Because of course, you're a Spider-Man. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So, no problem. I mean, I didn't say anything. Of course, I guess some of the others who were copied on the email said, no, she's the Consul General. So it's like, okay, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. But this happens all the time. Where you were saying I was the assistant collector. They thought, yes, that happened to me a lot of time. Is, okay, can I speak to the boss? Yes, I'm the boss. What? and the difference, and something tells me that when you are an artist, it's no different, is that if you are a man, Consul General, or assistant collector, or main actor, or group music artist, you don't need to justify yourself. Not even with one line saying, okay, it's me. No, because they don't expect anyone else. This is the difference. Now this will change. You will tell us, because it is already changing.
Yeah. But what I tried to say earlier is that I have seen that it is changing. I mean, my journey in my service in the last 28 years has moved, is moving towards positivity. So I feel a lot of hope in women getting acknowledged more for what they are, for what they stand for what they think. So let's hope that it continues in that.
I think a lot of the, I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate this properly, but let me try. So the corporate world and the creative world, the left brain, the right brain, masculine energy and feminine energy, these lines we've created, and often I think the problem is that everyone has been more on this side, making money, being a man, and using the right side of your brain. No, that's the more logical, technical, science, physics side of it. But where the human evolution in terms of empathy, all of these kind things, they do lie more in the feminine energy, the qualities which we have deemed to be as female, gentleness, kindness, listening to each other, consideration, which are not gendered at all in themselves, but they've been given like, oh, it's womanly, it's nurturing. No, everyone needs to be nurturing. The corporate world needs to also, because of course they're mentally fucked, their mental health is in the gutter, because this bridge hasn't been, this gap hasn't been bridged. And like, when these things, it's like the yin and yang, right? Everything like should come together as a beautiful globe where everyone accepts all qualities. And even as a woman, when you're told, oh, you're whatever, bossy, assertive, any of those things, like we take it on. Or if a man is told, absolutely, I have no issue with it. Same way, like if somebody who's like a man is like, oh, you're like really like gentle, like that is a compliment. All of these things are beautiful. This marriage of the creative corporate, which is like this right now, it needs to become like this.
I think the opposite is also starting to be true as women become more articulate. I think we are also now starting to describe men as being gentle, which is a very good thing.
Which is maybe something
and
they've
they
never
are
heard.
starting to respond to it because everybody has a feminine side and masculine side, right? So we have to encourage their feminine side to emerge by understanding and recognizing and acknowledging it in the way that is palatable for them.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful that we're talking, like one thing that seems to be the common thread is that we need to talk more about it. We need to articulate it more and bring it more into the public space, bring it more into the public realm where we normalize these conversations, where we normalize these perspectives and probably ways of being in themselves. And I'm going back to what all of you spoke, the engagement with art and how that allowed expression, how that allowed accessing these areas that we find it easily accessed through the arts.
Yeah, which society has blocked because of that other part of the...
And again, one thing I remember from an earlier conversation with Stefania was how the role that art and culture plays at large. Today, culture is quite a bastardized word, especially in our context. We've used it in a lot of religious contexts, and we've used it in ways which sort of help us run far, far, far away from it. But if we have to bring it into the right context, if we have to bring back its relevance, the idea of having art and culture in the public realm and bringing that collective ownership changes the narrative, because then the story is not narrated by a handful, but it's understood and accepted and interpreted by each and every one. It'll be great to hear a little more from you in terms of how that accessibility can be created.
You know, you were telling us about how art pieces are either in private homes or, you know, in Italy.
I remember that very well. It was a previous conversation we had, and it was, my point was mecenatism and how art is perceived in the public space. Again, we were more focused on the object of art, but of course it can be replicated in all arts. What I find is that in the context where that beauty and that craftsmanship become the object of art, you have more sense of belonging. The beauty, the artistic product gives you the sense of that community that you were mentioning before. So you need more, and you need more to access publicly. Now, what happened historically in Italy is that we have this amazing wave back in the 16th century of mecenatism that never stopped, actually, with Lorenzo il Magnifico, sorry for this, in English. And what you do, you just decide to use your own money. I don't think we have to be ashamed about talking about money. And also your own private taste. Because if you're paying for it, you have also, I think, the right to decide what you like. But then it is not for your private use. You don't use it in your home. You take pride of showing it to the community how powerful you are. And in return, the community gets the privilege of seeing something widely exposed. Now, I really hope we will arrive to the moment that the financial constraints that we have, let's say I want to bring here a beautiful exhibition of Caravaggio, the painter. I don't have enough funds for that. But I could not use funds from companies, Italian companies, and then keep them in a sort of private, right? We need to have that for everyone. The point is sharing. Now, I think we all need, especially after this COVID time, we need more than that. As we were saying at the beginning, we need more art in our lives. Well, we need to put it forward. We need to have it for everyone. I've been posted, and on purpose, I take a country that I love and that really shaped my mind in a lot of ways. I've been posted 5 years to Argentina. Now in Buenos Aires, it was so shocking at the beginning. There are some public spaces where you do not pay the ticket. So the first time that I went, there were 5 exhibitions in this place, and people were going back and forth, in and out. The same people in one day. And I thought, oh my God, we would never do that in Italy, because you pay a ticket and you are allowed to get in once with that ticket, otherwise you have to pay it again. But it changes. I mean, the fact of being for free or very accessible changes completely the relations with the object of art. Again, another country different from mine, Germany. If you go to the Opera House in Berlin, you will pay probably 3 or 4 times less than in Italy to sit there in the theater and enjoy an opera. Of course, you won't get the best place in the front row. Well, this goes without saying, but yet you go inside. So what happened to me, that twice I was running late for something else, and I decided to buy a ticket, the very lowest end, be in for 2 acts, and then go for dinner. It's a pity, yes, in a way, because I'm consuming more than enjoying it, but it gives all range of opportunities. Yeah. This is where I think, in a way, also I committed myself to work to in these years here, because I know that meant a lot for Italy. I think it can mean a lot here too.
No, and it's very what you're talking about, the impact and how there were people who were coming in and out. You can't measure that. It's not footfalls. It's not a change in attitude, or it's not monetarily accessible. And that's where the corporate world then holds back, saying, because often at G5A, we've tried again and again to bring in that kind of financial support so that arts can be accessible to a variety of audiences. Come, take a peek and leave. That's fine. Dip your feet and leave. But this ROI is not tangible, right? So, it's really nice that
it's lifelong.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And nurtures new ideas. Yes. This is again the thing. You support on one hand the artist, and on the other hand, you give the chance to you to go to a photo exhibition and have and have an idea. Another, I'm sorry, but this is really, I think this is really important. Another example that happened is that at a certain point, something happened, again in Buenos Aires, in that very space. So the new exhibition, one of the new exhibitions was not able to get in place because there was something domestic happening at that time. What I would have expected was just to prolong the exhibition that was there. It was the easiest thing. You just ask to everyone, would you mind to get it 2 months longer? I would have done probably this. But no, since they were free, the director of that space decided to have a public call on the newspaper and saying, we will show the very first 100 works that will arrive. It doesn't mean the best ones, the ones we chose, the first. Just flow in and whatever it is, we'll wait.
That's fantastic.
So I had a friend, and she had a very, as I say, she had a very serious job, but she was a fantastic painter. So I called her and I said, hey, you have to get in line, get 1 day off, go there and try to get in, because you're going to, if you can do that, you're going to show your works there. I mean, well, she did it. And she got off a wall. Wow. But the thing is that the wall in front of her were the graffiti guys. And it's not exactly legal, but still. And they stayed there 1 month. So they've been friends, and they had another project together. They probably will never leave of their art, but who cares?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is what I learned, and what I think we should aim at. Now, I do not say that everything has to be funded with public money, because sometimes it's not possible, sometimes it's not even convenient, because you might say that then the public commitment want to have a say, etc. But then flow in with whatever stream of monies you have, the private ones, and as you were saying, once again, the point, I think, you just said it, you have to broaden the band. That's it. Just put more in, and then something good will happen.
And I think what Swati was saying is exactly what we need to do, which is to really, to use sort of guerrilla warfare language, is to really capture some of these spaces, public spaces, and to really make art accessible. And so, in fact, I could do a little plug here, which is that at the end of the year we're doing a festival which we hope can be larger than this space. And no, to really, after our meeting, we were just thinking that it would be so wonderful if so many of our art objects that are not accessible to people, but if we are able to do something in the public sphere, and just bring people into, or rather, we don't have to bring them in. They'll just be there and come enjoy it. I think we really need to capture some of these spaces to get it out there and to make it as accessible as possible. And in some sense, that's what the essence of G5A really is. That it's really been designed as a lab to really create ideas like this, to build on new projects, develop new work. So it's not even about just building spaces like this. It's really about building this kind of conversation, and then to access people like all of you who have the sensitivity, but also have proficiency and I guess privilege and power in other spaces that could help us, as Rytasha was saying, really bring this thing together. And maybe I think if, like Priyanka was saying, we can continue some of this, it would be fabulous, because I think we touched upon some really important points that, for me at least, I'm going to sort of take from this conversation and maybe share with you all again. But one is the idea of just not simplifying. I'm going to, and please pitch in so that, I may not say it in the right order, I may not remember everything, but I think that just the idea of, like you really, said, we are complex, we have complex things to talk about. So let's gear up, and be ready for that exchange. I think that's really important. Secondly, I think this idea of just making all of this more accessible to people, because I think then, Swati, like you rightly said, it's about just familiarity. And like, Stefania, you were saying, I mean, if I'm able to go to this space over and over and over and do either my sketch or just be there in the presence of that work, it just creates a different relationship. There's an intimacy that I develop with the work, a certain almost ownership, and that then leads to a whole other relationship, which you can extend. So
And the sanctity of the thing, it's taken away.
exactly, the preciousness, that whole boundary, and again, as
That
Pelva, I
pressure
think
you
were
were
saying,
mentioning.
so
Sorry to
we
interrupt.
dissolve a lot of those boundaries. What else? I think.
Can I
Yeah.
add one practical point?
Yeah.
So the whole CSR rule just now, which is very good, we have to learn to use that better. Just now it's being used, it's still very early, but we really have to find a way to capture that
Yeah.
for culture.
Yes.
For sure.
And maybe, government is always extremely helpful. The reason this rule is there because companies were not doing what they needed to do. So maybe we can find a way to, culture came in very late, but we should find a way to use that well. And maybe companies should have a little quota for culture and art.
But also for contemporary culture.
All culture, all culture.
No, all culture. We see, we're very proud of our 5 million years of heritage. And that gets respected.
This is culture.
But
right?
also-
Yes, that's what I mean. But people don't see
But
it
Anuradha,
readily.
in fact, the reason I was going to leave is I have a fundraising conversation this afternoon I sit on the, I work with the World Monuments Fund as well. And it's interesting that you say culture because, so there you're raising funds from CSR for heritage buildings, right? But again, the conversation that we choose to have is that this is not a beautiful building that you have to preserve in its iconic state. Is how is it relevant today, right? That it's building skills, that actually changing this, finding water and being able to provide it at this spot is reviving ancient water management systems, which builds into everybody's idea about the environment. You've got to talk about, if this building is iconic, then this city will get this garden to use. And I think that you just, I know I'm saying that it has to be, I don't mean to be marketing it, but those are also aspects of what you achieve through culture.
Yeah.
You just
Absolutely.
because for all of us, it's so implicit that we don't sometimes articulate all of the extensions that it goes into, and that's what makes a conversation rich for someone who doesn't understand it, right? And
No, and
so
that's
wish me
what-
well.
Of course.
No, and that's so important because we're essentially, everything that we have started off with, while we do engage with art and culture, we do leave it behind in the city, in the nooks and corners of the city, and that's a lot of work that we are doing, aims to create more G5As and to create that kind of perspective outside of G5A as well. And I do hope that everything that we've talked about, just imagine the power and the intensity of it if this kind of feeling can be taken outside of this room as well, in our daily lives, in our everything that we're doing. And we keep coming back, we'll keep coming back to replenish ourselves with thoughts and ideas and this positive energy. But on that very positive note, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being a part of
Thank you. We
the
really
first
enjoyed it.
Open
Great to be a part.
Thank you so much.
Grazie.
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 Grazie, ve ne prego.
Meraviglia.